How bad was sex education in high school? It was the worst. That's why we wanted to start this podcast. Dr. Stormy and I knew that there are so many folks out there that want to learn more, that want to start conversations, that want to be vulnerable and express their feelings, emotions, wants, and desires. And that's what Sex 101 is about. Dr. Stormy has spent so much time working with couples, working with men and women. I myself have worked with lots of men talking about relationships and sex and where we're at today with our sexuality. So come join us. This is going to be a great episode, just like all Sex 101 episodes. You're going to learn a lot, you're going to laugh a lot, and we're going to have a great time. All right, we are back, and as always, I'm excited about every episode we ever make, but this one I'm excited about because it's hard to say. I've been looking at this word for the last 20 minutes going, multi-orgasmic.
Oh, you're saying it very well, very well.
Many times in my life, I don't even know if I've been singularly orgasmic. So this is going to be, a fun one. I'm very excited about this because honestly, to me and lots of people I know, this is kind of like just a legend or a myth almost, or you know what I mean? Like it feels like we're in that territory. So I'm excited to hear more about it for sure.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I love that, right? So one of the things I just want to start off with saying is that this is not we're not into orgasm shaming. As we know, we're not even into, we don't even promote being orgasm focused on the Sex 101 podcast. Yeah. So I want you guys to just be playful and curious about this episode. But what I don't want you to do is go into it being like, I've never been multi-orgasmic, or I can't be multi-orgasmic, because there's just, anytime we add stress and performance, we don't find our orgasm, or certainly don't find it well. So this is just an invitation to explore what being multi-orgasmic might be like and feel like and look like for you and for your partner.
Love it. I love it. I don't have any idea where to start, or is this about the finish? I don't even is the beginning, is it the end? I don't know. So yeah, I'm ready to get into it, Stormy.
Yeah, amazing. Well, let's just start with the definition, right? So multi-orgasmic is more than one orgasm in a session, right? And there's a lot of we don't even know, right? I've talked about many episodes about there's the magic and the mystery. We know some about orgasm, but there's so much we still don't know about orgasm. We've talked about in other episodes that orgasm and ejaculation are not the same thing. You can go check out those episodes, although they're very temporally related often, that they're not the same thing. But really the definition is more than one orgasm in a session. And like you mentioned, it's the stuff of myths, right? But the invitation is that we can all be multi-orgasmic, whether we are or not. There's lots of reasons and things that contribute for that. It's not good or bad or wrong or right. It's just an invitation to be curious about what that might be like for you. And according to research, 8 to 15% of women, vulva owners, have or are multi-orgasmic. I did find one study out of the UK that said 70% of women, but that's the only one. That was an outlier in that study. And they say that women and vulva owners can have about the average is, if they're multi-orgasmic, can have 5 orgasms in one session.
Wow.
And by the way, I found that the maximum ever reported was from one woman was 140 orgasms in one session.
Lord. I
think I'd be tired for 2 weeks.
I know. What did she do? She had to go to Target and stuff. Seems like you would have had to had to keep having them while you did some other stuff.
Wasn't that amazing? I was wow, go girl. Go girl. And then 10% of men in their 20s have been reported to be multi-orgasmic, and then 7% in 30s and up. And so, but men can also have up to 5 orgasms in a romp, according to research and anecdotally. So and
I'm sure you're going to answer. I'm sure you're going to answer that, but or we can answer it now, or later. But does that mean a guy comes? Because it feels like orgasm with a guy is connected to coming. So with that,
right. So this is the whole ejaculation orgasm are not the same thing. They're very temporally related, so they get smooshed together. So often if men are multi-orgasmic, they'll have an ejaculatory orgasm, then they'll have several non-ejaculatory orgasms, and then maybe they might have another ejaculatory orgasm. So it's really separate. The orgasm is the peak experience of pleasure. Ejaculation is the ejection of semen, of sperm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think about that, like those numbers of 8 to 15% and 10% of men, that's not a lot of us. And that's why I'm excited to do this episode, because here's the thing, if the orgasms or the multiple orgasms isn't the focus, this is just an invitation to get to know your body and your pleasure, maybe different areas of your body more. And I am always for that for everyone.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, awesome. So, I mean, but to your point, Toby, the great question about ejaculation and orgasm is the refractory period is like the challenge for men, for penis owners,
Yeah.
because it's a real thing, right?
Right.
It varies man to man. It tends to it change as we age. Even things like stress and diet and sleep, it can all affect the refractory period. But that's the time where you cannot, first of all, you don't experience arousal or pleasure, but you also can't get an erection during that time. And so, that's why these non-ejaculatory orgasms can be really expansive for men to explore and play with.
Yeah, it can be also, I mean, it can be really sensitive too. Your penis can be extremely sensitive after you ejaculate. And and you're right, it can take a while. I mean, it can take a while to recover, or the refractory period for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, there's also a lot of research out there that, let's say for women, for example, they might report that their experience of being multi-orgasmic, it really does vary person to person, is that they'll describe it as rolling orgasm. So one orgasm rolls right into another. And they're amazing, but they're not like common to experience. Often it's one orgasm, then like a lull period where maybe not such a refractory period for women, but it might be a period where like they're just not feeling that aroused, or their clitoris is really sensitive, right? And then they can have another orgasm, right? Maybe in a different area, which we're going to get to in a second, different kind of orgasm. Yeah. But so one of the invitations when you're exploring, being curious about being and becoming multi-orgasmic, is that you're really broadening your knowledge of the body, of the anatomy of pleasure, also of different types of orgasms that are available both to men and women, right? There's different types available to both, more available to women just because of our anatomy, but there are multiple types available to men as well. So yeah, let's just get right into it. So some like strategies to practice. Well, let's just start with like the pelvic floor would be your Kegels, right? So this is for men and women, but both men and women, it's important to practice your Kegels. And so that strengthens the pelvic floor musculature. And one way to like definitely do your Kegels, like I think I've said in other episodes, I like do them at a stoplight. That's my cue, my reminder to like do my Kegels is at the stoplight, right? And it should feel pleasurable.
Yeah.
But you're strengthening.
It's a lot better than looking at your phone.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot safer and a lot more pleasurable. So, and it always makes me giggle too. It's like my own little like inside like joke. I'm like, here we go. Stop like doing some Kegels, right? So find your cue. Maybe it's like, I don't know, while you're having your cup of coffee in the morning or when you get into the shower, but really doing Kegels. And then I would also say, just to be safe on Kegels, if you start experiencing pain or tension, like you can actually have too much tension in the pelvic floor. And then there's pelvic floor specialists that are really great at dialing in whether we have too much tension or not enough tension in our pelvic floor. I've worked with one myself and they're amazing. But Kegels and strengthening the pelvic floor in general for penis owners, one good way is to nod your penis. You can do that when you're like semi-erect, or even working towards doing that when you're flaccid. So you can really isolate that muscle of what it means to bob your penis. Also stopping and starting your stream of urine. For women, you want to think about the same thing, bringing in those muscles and pulling the vagina like up into your body, up towards your belly button. Like, so pulling in and up, and that sort of is going to increase the tone and the muscle tone in your pelvic floor.
And this is something you should feel it though, like with working out. Like if you should be feeling something and it maybe even get like you actually did work a muscle or something, right? Like you should have
totally. That. It's a whole sling of muscles, and absolutely, it's skeletal muscle, and we can literally exercise it same as we can our biceps, right? So, but it gets forgotten unless we're often like we don't even think about our Kegling or our pelvic floor unless we're, struggling with incontinence or like we sneeze and we pee a little bit or whatever. But really, it's a really great way to help bring blood flow and increase the muscular tone in your pelvic floor to have better orgasms, to have multiple orgasms. So Kegels for sure.
Nice.
And then I always recommend with my clients, and my own journey with this too is to start with self-pleasure. It is much easier to explore multiple orgasms with yourself than with partnered sex. And some people will say, well, I can't have multiple orgasms unless I'm having partnered sex. Well, great. Now you've learned that about yourself, but start with yourself, start with self-pleasure and get curious, like literally look at it as an exploration of, can I be multi-orgasmic in my self-pleasure, in my masturbation?
I like that.
So that's a great way. So
it's a good reason to masturbate.
It's a good reason to masturbate. Always a good reason to masturbate. And then the next one is thinking about different areas, right? So for women, as we've talked about in many episodes, a lot of women report that they don't consistently orgasm without clitoral stimulation. So they don't orgasm with penetration alone often. Statistically. And so the clitoris is a great way, right? So clitoral orgasms. But let's say you and your woman find a clitoral orgasm. She has a clitoral orgasm. Likely the next orgasm for many women isn't going to be clitoral. It's going to, because her clitoris is sensitive, right? It's actually like not even aroused. Maybe it's sensitive or even painful because she just had an orgasm, clitoral orgasm. But this is where the anatomy is really important. And this is one of the things we love to teach about on the Sex 101 podcast is the anatomy and the anatomy of pleasure. So for women, clitoral, G-spot, talked about that. We did a whole episode on the G-spot. Yeah. The C-spot, so the cervix, right, can also stimulate an orgasm. Anal orgasms for men, anal orgasms, and also the P-spot, the prostate, which we've done a whole episode on as well. But these are some of the other areas. Nipple orgasms is another thing. We talked about erogenous zones before. So, changing positions is the next tip, but also changing areas where you're focusing your stimulation is a great way to practice being multi-orgasmic.
So when you say changing positions, you just mean like you're doing this and it's getting you there. So then you change it so that it gets you a little farther. Is it like that? Like you're building upon something? Is that why you're changing the position or changing it just to feel something? I don't know.
Yeah. So let's say you have an orgasm from missionary. Mm-hmm. Well, it would be helpful this isn't partnered sex, obviously. So if you're exploring multi orgasms, now change it up. Try doggy, right? Because doggy has a lot more a lot more access to the clitoris, right? So that you're changing positions to allow your focus and attention, more pressure, more friction, more angle to be on a different area of anatomy.
Okay. Makes sense.
And so it's not really like stick with what's working, right? That's a great tip to like if you're right on the edge of orgasm, but it's actually like after orgasm, change it up entirely. Change positions, change pace, change intensity, right? So changing the positions. And then also changing the area of which you're focusing your stimulation. So let's say you had a clitoral orgasm. Maybe the focus is now on the anus, right? Or around the anus or in the anus, right? Like that's a whole different area. Yeah. We've talked about orgasms before, like don't forget the breasts, right? And by the way, men and women can have nipple orgasms. So there's, the breasts are an amazing thing to play with that. And then I think, one of the things I added to my list of tips is to take a break. Like multi-orgasm just means in one session. So it doesn't mean you have to go right one right into the other, because that might not feel aligned. You might feel even like a little like, we talk about like, right, the joke is like smoke a cigarette after an orgasm. You might need like a moment to regroup. Your genitals might be really sensitive. So you can totally take a break, stay connected, and come back to play. So I think that takes some of the pressure off of people, that they just think one needs to roll right into the next, into the next, into the next.
Does it work like with women, or does the vagina, after having an orgasm, is a woman then wanting another one? Like it is, like, because like I was saying earlier, like men oftentimes after they have sex, they, the old cliche is they fall asleep or they're out or their penis is sensitive. Oh, don't move, or something like that. Like, is it? But with women, do they need there's not a refractory period necessarily, but do they need time, or can it be, let's keep going? Like they want you to keep stimulating them.
Yeah, that's a great question. So that would be called like what we call stacking. So stacking, which by the way is a great thing to play with men and women, and then just communicate well with your partner. But stacking is when you continue the arousal, continue the stimulation, even post orgasm. So let's say you're like, you're really focusing on your woman's clitoris. She has an orgasm. You might continue stimulating her clitoris, and she might be like, that's actually sensitive. Like that is not feeling good right now. So I need you to change it up, right? Or I want you to change it up, or try this, or whatever the feedback is. So let's play with that. Stack it. Maybe the vagina, maybe like the vaginal canal itself is like, yeah, I'm still good to go. Like this is still feeling really good, right? And also be curious. Like it's a nuanced thing, right? Maybe you're like feeling so relaxed and blissed out, but when your partner continues to stimulate you, or you continue to stimulate yourself, you're like, oh, that actually still does feel good, just different, right? Because this is going to be a new experience for most listeners out there to play with being multi-orgasmic. And then I think, the bringing the lightheartedness in the communication. We say it in every episode because it's so important. Like, and don't bring out your like tally to like orgasm count, because that will not work. It will not be successful. So it's an exploration, it's a play, it's a curiosity, it's a practice. And that's why I always recommend practicing being multi-orgasmic in masturbation first before being with a partner. And being curious and playful about it, not so intense about it. There's nothing wrong if you aren't multi-orgasmic. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. It's just something to explore if you choose to.
I like what you're saying here too, because one of the things I haven't thought about, I mean, I guess I have thought about this, but in this conversation, it brings it back up for me. I guess coming and having an orgasm does not mean that has to be the end of you and your partner having sex in that moment either. Like you can, like even if you're say your penis or clitoris is sensitive, you can still be a nice massage then, and then you get aroused again, or or like a caresses, or just making out, or there's like all these things. Not like we say this a ton too. It's not just penetration. That isn't not just the only thing that there is with sex. Like there's so much more. So you really could have an orgasm and then just still be really romantic with each other. Like Stormy saying, keep it lighthearted, laugh a little bit, cut up, flirt. And then you can do it again and again. And, you can just try that and see what that's like.
Yeah, I love that. Right. Like, and that's also taking the focus off of orgasm. Like orgasms are amazing. They're amazing. They're like a little euphoric bliss for sure, but that's not the end all be all. And it's not the goal. Because anytime we're putting pressure on that, so whether it's one orgasm or multiple orgasms, we're way less likely to be present. And when we're in performance, we're not in pleasure, we're not in sensation. So the invitation is to be curious about it, continuing the physical stimulation, continuing the arousal after your orgasm. Like you said, also Toby, like continuing the connection. Like there can be a really beautiful downtime where you're just like luxuriating in the orgasm together, and then you're playing with another one. Right. You're inviting in the possibility of another orgasm.
Yep, totally.
And you had asked earlier about edging, which you were talking about when you get close to orgasm and back down. So that's a little different. I love edging. We've talked about it in many episodes. I think it's a fabulous practice. It's a really great way to like increase the intensity and quality of your orgasm. It's a little bit different because you're delaying. You're coming up towards orgasmic pleasure and then coming back down and then going back up and edging back and forth, delaying your orgasm for like a big fabulous one. But that's not necessarily about having multiple orgasms. Although a lot of people, and myself included, do suggest edging as a practice to practice being multi-orgasmic, because for me it's about sexual mastery. When we're practicing edging, we get to be what's my orgasm inevitability? Like at what point am I having an orgasm no matter what point can I slow it down and back down and then build my pleasure back up? And so you're just starting to get to know your pleasure map, your own erotic pleasure better. And so I think edging is also a great practice. It's just a little bit different than multi-orgasmic.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, one of the things you said, I wanted to reiterate too, it really is easy to fall into the trap of let's get to the orgasm. If we can do that, I'm a great lover. Totally. But that just isn't true. Like it really is. And it's really hard not to feel that way, because when either one of you has an orgasm, you go, oh man, I helped do that. Or I'd love to do that. I'd love to, guys, so many men, I would even say maybe even most, really do want to be great lovers. We said this a million times, but want to be great lovers and want their partners to have great orgasms, and they want to have great sex. But if that is the goal, then it puts a lot of pressure on each of you. Then you're taking your focus off of enjoying each other and the moment, right. And it's still so much fun. all of sex can be fun. And that doesn't come, that no pun intended, that doesn't come easy. It's hard to realize that because you want to be a great lover, but you might be, and all you need to do is just not overthink it.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, those are just some tips to get you guys thinking about, like, I mean, and I guess some of a good place to kind of, before we move into Stump Stormy, is that what, is it something you're curious about? Are you curious about being multi-orgasmic? Maybe you're good with just your one, or maybe you're even struggling to have one. Like, there's no blame, no shame, no judgment. But do you want to explore multiple orgasms? And if so, these are some tips to kind of set you up for success.
Awesome. All right. Send in your questions, but also send in if you guys try some things and become multi-orgasmic. We'd love to hear the
for sure.
We'd love to hear all the stories. Okay, let's get to Stump Stormy.
It's time to Stump Stormy.
All right, I thought this one was pretty interesting. Now I looked this up. It's really funny. If anybody,
you're already laughing. That's not good.
If anybody looked at our internet history or yours and mine's text thread, they would just die laughing. It's just so funny. Okay, so the only information I could find, the only study I could find was from 2006, 2007. But how many men in the United States were admitted to the hospital for a penile fracture? Now,
how many men? Is this in a year?
Yes.
Okay. How many men were in the United States in a year? I'm gonna say like several thousand.
Pretty well, 1,000. Basically about 1,043 men.
Impressive.
And the average age, the range was 16 to 67, but the average age was about 36. It makes sense. So right around there. But here's one that an added from looking this up. I found this and I thought this is really interesting. Some men break their penises on purpose. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
In a practice known as, I'm going to not say this right, Tagandan, which means to click in Kurdish, men will hold the lower shaft of their erect penis with one hand, then use the other to quickly snap the upper shaft. When done correctly, it is said to be painless and a habit akin to knuckle cracking.
No.
And then, and so a doctor said, why do men do this? Dr. Javad Zargushi, a urologist professor at Kermanshah University, I'm butchering all these names, I'm sorry, in Iran. He did a published work that said it causes a loss of erection and is and gives you a satisfying popping noise. And maybe it's to practice getting rid of an unwanted erection. So I never would have guessed that.
The sex coach in me is not loving that practice.
I know. When I thought that,
I'm cringing.
I mean, I don't even crack my knuckles, so I don't like cracking my.
A whole different level.
I know.
Can you imagine? You're like, what's he doing? Just cracking his penis.
It's a nervous habit.
The Stump Storm. It's just a nervous habit.
It's gonna be a stump if y'all don't stop that. Okay. All right, ready? All right, let's get to listener questions.
Have a question? We've got answers. Here's this week's listener question.
Okay. We love your listener questions. Please send them in. We appreciate it. You can you can email me at Toby at marriagesupply.com. Toby at marriagesupply.com, or you can email Stormy at lovedeeplab.com, because we love these questions. We want more and more, and we love the variety. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to write us. So so let's get to it. First question is, what other solutions are there for not getting pregnant besides condoms? I hate condoms. And this comes from, don't be silly, protect your willy.
So when it comes to birth control, like there's lots of different kinds. There's so many options out there, which is great. But like if you think about like the genres of like implants and IUDs, birth control pills. There's pills, rings, patches, injections, and those are higher success rate of preventing unwanted pregnancies. The thing with condoms is you're also getting sexually transmitted infection protection, really good STI protection. So you have to weigh these out. Are you just looking at preventing pregnancy? Is there also an STI component? And these are things to talk to your healthcare provider, or if you're a woman, talk to your gynecologist or your family practice doc about what is it you're wanting. Okay. And then there's a lot of different things like that don't work quite as well as far as preventing pregnancy, but things like spermicides and sponges and cervical caps and diaphragms. And then even less effective are things like your fertility awareness and things that they call the pull-out method, right? So pull and pray or pull-out method, right? So not using anything. Those are statistically way less successful in preventing unwanted pregnancies, but people can, and you do use them. So there's lots of different options out there besides condoms, but I just wanted you to be thoughtful about also things to consider is like, do you want a hormone? So for me, for example, I have a client source, so I can't take the hormone, couldn't take hormone birth control pills when I was on them. So I had to do a non-hormonal form of contraception. So there's lots of different things out there. So figure out whether you're wanting just for pregnancy prevention, also STI, what's your, if you're in a partnership, have you guys been tested? What's your agreements on that? And those things can really weigh in, hormonal or not. How committed are you to preventing a pregnancy? Right. So these are all factors that go into it, but there's lots of options out there.
Yeah. And really take your time with this. I mean, I've heard so many people have good experiences and bad experiences with the pill, all kinds of things. So definitely take your time and figure this out, what works for both of you. Because it will really make all the difference. Okay.
Yeah. And then also whether the woman's going to do it or you're going to be, protection for her, protection for you. Both of you, there's lots of different options out there.
I'm so surprised they haven't been able to create a pill for men. I feel like that would just be a humongous. I mean, the two biggest sellers ever in the history of the world will be the pill for men, so they can't get pregnant, and penis growth, like a pill that actually does that, or a cheap surgery or something. You know what I mean? Maybe they have that, I guess. But I'm just saying. I'm not saying that's healthy, but I'm saying men will just do it.
Oh yeah, I would flock to that for sure, right?
So it must be hard to do because, of course, somebody would have done that because they'd be the richest person in the world. So
yeah.
All right, next question. Does morning wood mean my body wants sex? And this comes from Alarm Cock.
I love that I don't look at your little monikers before, because then they always make me laugh during our recordings. So fun. I'm going to answer that in the nerdy way. So your testosterone is highest in the morning. So that's one reason why men often wake up with erection. But actually more likely is that the erections are happening like kind of on and off throughout the night, and you're just more aware of the one in the morning because you're awake. And that's a lot more because of the parasympathetic nervous system is really involved in sexual arousal, and also when we sleep. So that, you're more in your parasympathetic. So that's those two things together, that your nervous system and your testosterone are two of the main reasons why often men will wake up with morning wood, as they call it, right? But it's a great thing. It's a really great thing. And also don't freak out if you don't, because lots of things affect morning wood, right? So age, stress, diet, sleep, lots of things affect morning wood. So, and most men will report it's not every day, right? Especially as they get older. So it's a beautiful thing when you have it. So enjoy it. But that's the reasons for it.
Nice. All right. Like I said, send in your listener questions. We sure do appreciate it. We love it. You can email either one of us. Like I said, you can email me at toby@marriagesupply.com or stormy@lovedeeplab.com. And Stormy, you probably got some stuff going on anyway they should email you about, right?
Yeah. So we have our 21-day pleasure challenge coming up, backed by popular demand. We're going in the third year of that. It starts January 1st. It's a really great gift to gift yourself for the holidays. I love encouraging people to gift themselves things at the holidays. And also, you can also gift it to your honey. And you can gift it to someone else too. It's a beautiful thing to do together, actually, as a couple. But you can, I'll put in the show notes, I'm doing a 20% discount code for our listeners. You can just put love in at the checkout and get a discount. And then that starts January 1st, right to your email box. It's 21 days of pleasure challenges to help bring more pleasure into your life. And then if this episode resonated with you and you're curious about the multi-orgasmic part of it, I think it's really related to a lot of it too, like our approach to sex and how we approach ourselves and our partner. So I'd be happy to share with you a sacred sex guide that I made. And you can just email me, stormy@lovedeeplab.com, and put sacred sex guide in the subject, and I'll send that off to you.
I love it. You can get 10% off at marriagesupply.com with code SEX101. You can follow Dr. Stormy on Instagram at DocStormy1, the number 1, or her TikTok, Touchy Subjects with 3 S's. And Marriage Supply is on Instagram as well at the.marriage.supply. Thank you guys so much. Remember, knowledge is power. Sex is power.
And the world needs more of both.